have returned. I apologize for the delay in the video making, but things have been very, very hectic, both in my professional life and in my personal life. Nothing life-ending or anything like that. Just very, very busy. But lots to talk about. A lot going on in the world of professional wrestling. I also have something big that's coming up in September. I don't want to say what it is yet. What I can say is that it is not wrestling related. It is not book related. It is not Godzilla related. It is actually football related. So I'll have more details when I'm allowed to actually say stuff. But for right now, just know that I've got something big coming up in September that's related to football. So be on the lookout for that. But lots to talk about in the world of professional wrestling. There's a lot going on. We had 2 pay-per-views last weekend. We've got Becky Lynch potentially leaving WWE. Her contract expires, I believe, tomorrow, if I've got my calendar right. So I wanted to comment on that. There's also like an NXT and TNA working relationship going on, which is very interesting. And we got Forbidden Door coming up. Lots going on, and I want to get into all of that. So, God, I don't even know where to start. Well, the topic, the thumbnail of the video that I created related to Becky Lynch. So I guess I'll start off by talking about that. So, Becky Lynch potentially leaving WWE. I would be very surprised if she popped up in AEW or anywhere else, to be perfectly honest. She's been such a staple of WWE programming for so long that it would be very, very surprising if she went somewhere else. That's not to say, like, you know, because I feel like Becky's lost a little bit of something, not necessarily physically, but intrigue as a character, that has diminished, especially recently. So, you know, a change of scenery might freshen her up, and that's happened to a lot of people, and it's, you know, the change of scenery kind of freshens them up, and then they eventually come back to WWE bigger, better, and badder than ever before. Bobby Lashley comes to mind. Cody Rhodes comes to mind. You know, so there's plenty of examples of that, but I would be very surprised if she popped up anywhere else. I just don't picture her going anywhere else. I think, personally, she's probably going to take a break, and I'm sure AEW and Tony Khan have knocked on her door. I definitely believe that to be the case, but I think she's probably going to take a break, and I think she's probably playing the game to get the best deal possible for her. I'm sure she's been offered something by AEW, and I'm sure she's going to use that as leverage to get a better deal with WWE. And if that's the case, good on her. You know, she's playing the game, and she's a you know, homemade star with the WWE, so she's got some leverage. And, you know, some time off might do her some good. So, you know, you know, it was this major headline that came up in the last couple of weeks. I personally don't think she's going anywhere. I personally, again, I could be wrong, but I don't think she's going to AEW or TNA or anything like that. I think she's going to take a little bit of time off and then come back to WWE. That's my take. And we'll see if I'm right. But I don't envision her going anywhere else. But what else is there to talk about? Well, MJF came back, and that made AEW a lot more exciting for sure. Unfortunately, though, and I'll talk more when I talk about Double or Nothing, but it was the best moment on a pay-per-view that was way too long, and that moment came way too early, so much so that you almost forgot that it happened. But yeah, MJF is back, and AEW is instantly more interesting when he's around. So I wonder if they're even going to bother with an Adam Cole match, because he already beat him up. So it's like, is this their way of just kind of shoving that under the carpet and being done with it? I don't know, but it just seems like, because God only knows when Adam Cole's going to be healthy enough to perform, but it's, I don't know. I don't know. So they might just have something else lined up for MJF. He was not on Dynamite this week, which is okay. Sometimes you want to strike the iron when it's hot and keep the momentum going, but other times it's like, you know, if you're on TV every week, you become overexposed, and it's more exciting when you can promote an entire episode of Dynamite around his return, which who knows when that'll be. But yeah, I thought his promo was great. I thought he looked great. The Triple H jacket was kind of funny, but also looked kind of good on him. So, you know, but yeah, AEW is a lot better with MJF around. That was definitely the case last year, and he has definitely been missed since December of 2023. So, great to have MJF back, and here's hoping he can help make AEW great again, to steal a Trumpism. But yeah, so there's that. And now let's talk about the NXT or WWE / TNA working relationship on this week's NXT. It kind of became a bit of a storm on Twitter that Jordan Grace showed up and is going to be challenging for the NXT Women's Championship. Ethan Page has also shown up, although he's coming over from AEW, but he was, known as a TNA face, so I don't know if he's going to be, part of that working relationship as well. I like Ethan Page. He's the one that I've always liked, and I felt like he was underutilized in AEW. So here's hoping a move to NXT gives him a shot, and here's hoping he turns it into something. But I will say this: like a TNA NXT working relationship makes both shows more interesting. I still don't know if I have time to watch either one. I haven't watched NXT in a dog's age, and TNA I was getting back into them when they did the rebranding. I was like, okay, this is cool, but then they fired Scott D'Amore, and I kind of lost interest because he was the one that was spearheading that whole revamp, and without him, it just kind of felt like they lost their captain. But, I think this instantly makes both brands more interesting again, and here's hoping they can turn it into something, create some interesting matches and talent exchanges. One thing I'm and I saw this floating around as a meme, and I know it was kind of a jokey meme, but there's a part of me that kind of wants it. If AJ Styles is included in this and he wins the TNA World Championship again, I will mark like the biggest mark of all time, because I was a huge TNA guy in the mid 2000s, like 2004 to 2008. You couldn't find a bigger TNA fan than me. I know LOL TNA and all that other stuff, but TNA filled a very big void for me in the years after losing WCW and ECW, which, as I've said a million times, is the worst thing that ever happened to wrestling. TNA never completely replaced WCW, but they did help fill the void a little bit, at least halfway. And it gave us something that wasn't WWE. And WWE wasn't all bad during that time. It was just that when it's all WWE, it becomes monotonous. And, I'm the type of wrestling fan, I like different expressions of the art form. I don't want it to be just Vince McMahon's voice, or, even in today's day and age, I don't want it to be just Triple H's voice. I like having AEW around. I wish they were better, because it's always better when you have better options and more things that are interesting to watch. So TNA helped fill that void for me. I know Ring of Honor was that company for a lot of people, but I couldn't follow a company that survived, that generated interest mostly through DVD trading and DVD sales. And that was just not, that was not interesting to me. And even TNA in the early days when they were the weekly pay-per-view format, I'm like, I'm not buying a pay-per-view every week. Screw that. So, but once they got to FSN and it gave me something to watch on TV every week, I was like, okay, this is kind of neat. I kind of dig it. And, there were some peaks and valleys, but for the most part, I enjoyed being a TNA fan during that time. So, and AJ Styles was Mr. TNA. He was their biggest homegrown star. So if they managed to concoct a situation where AJ represented NXT in some kind of talent exchange and then won the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, I would kind of mark out for that. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know. I'll tell you this. If AJ Styles is part of the TNA NXT exchange, I will try to watch both shows, because I do like AJ Styles. And him back in a TNA environment would be very, very exciting to me. So just throwing my 2 cents out there. And I guess with that, I can go ahead and talk about the 2 pay-per-views. I did not see King and Queen of the Ring. None of the results surprised me. Liv Morgan won the title from Becky. Not a shock at all. They've been pushing her on TV, and they're actually doing some intriguing things with her with the Dominic Mysterio stuff and all of that. And, it's something. As I always said, something's better than nothing. I didn't like previous attempts to try and push Liv Morgan, but this seems to have a little bit more bite to it, is a little bit more interesting, and sets up, her versus Rhea upon Rhea Ripley's return. So there's something going on there. It's like, okay, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling that. Gunther won the King of the Ring to the surprise of absolutely no one. Nia Jax won the Queen of the Ring. Once it came down to her and Lyra in the finals, it was pretty much clear. It was like, okay, yeah, Nia's going to win this. We pretty much knew that, so no surprise there. Not opposed to it either. Nia's been a lot better since returning to the WWE. I mean, by the time she left the first time, she was awful. Like, awful. And when she left, nobody was shedding tears. But she's kind of revamped herself, and I think won back some goodwill with the fan base, and has been a lot better since coming back. So this win isn't the end of the world. Now, one interesting thing about the tournaments is that right before the show, I think the day before, Triple H announced that the winners of both tournaments will be getting title shots at SummerSlam. And then Double or Nothing rolls around, and on the pre-show they announced that the Owen Hart Memorial Tournaments, both male and females, are happening, and the winners of those 2 tournaments will be getting title shots at All In Wembley. Now, one of 2 things happened. I don't know which. Either Triple H somehow got wind of what Tony Khan was going to do and beat him to the punch, or Tony saw what Triple H did and then decided to just mimic it. Either one is completely within the realm of possibility. I could see WWE trying to fuck with AEW a little bit, and I could see Tony going, oh, they did that? Well, I'll do that too. I don't know which one happened, but I found it very, very interesting that Tony basically had the exact same announcement that Triple H did right before the show. Or it could just be a massive coincidence, like the Tom and Jerry and Bugs Bunny cartoons that were identical to each other. It's like, no, it's just a coincidence. I don't know. It's one of those things. What were those cartoons? Rhapsody Rabbit and the Cat Concerto or something like that. But yeah, it could just be a massive coincidence. Who knows? But I found it to be very, very interesting. I will say this, and this is part of my whole, like, there's too much of everything going on in wrestling. Like, too many ladder matches, too many multi-person ladder matches, too much programming, too many titles, on and on and on. We can throw tournaments onto that pile too, because after last year, when AEW got through like 906 tournaments, I was like, I don't want to see another tournament for the next 10 years. So of course WWE does a mini tournament heading into Backlash, and then the King and Queen of the Ring, which impacted programming because you had both tournaments running on both shows. And it was a lot, and it made the shows kind of monotonous for me, because it's like, oh my god, another tournament. And now, of course, AEW is doing 2 more annual tournaments, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my god, why are there so many tournaments? Stop it, no more, no mas. I tap. Like, no more tournaments. It's just, and WWE's programming since WrestleMania, at first it was the draft that was dominating programming. That ended up being kind of a wet fart. Yeah, the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments, I'm already sick of tournaments, so I was just instantly not interested in that. And I'm just sitting there like, ugh. And it's not that WWE programming is all bad. Like, I'm enjoying the Intercontinental title stuff with Sami Zayn and Chad Gable's heel turn. I think that's going well. I think, Cody Rhodes is obviously still the guy as champion. I don't know if I'd have him defend the title at every pay-per-view. Damian Priest is not working as World Heavyweight Champion. I just don't feel it with him. Not working at all. Especially when you have Cody to compare him to. It's just not even in the same realm. And, they did the segment on Raw this week where he's having confrontations with Gunther and Drew McIntyre, and he doesn't look like he belongs in the ring with them, quite honestly. It's just, it ain't working for me. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. But, it's not that WWE programming has been bad. It's just kind of like the main focuses of them have been largely uninteresting to me. And we're past the draft. We're past the King and Queen of the Ring tournament. Hopefully that means that, we can get back to a little bit more like dynamic and interesting storytelling instead of just doing the same thing every show. So again, here's hoping, but I haven't been feeling it since WrestleMania, mainly because of the draft and the 2 tournaments, because I'm already sick of tournaments. AEW definitely, ruined that for me. But then you've got SummerSlam coming up, and they've announced that SummerSlam is going to be 2 nights. And I'm immediately like, onto the too much pile. It's like, is this going to be the new thing where everything is 2 nights now? Is that because WrestleMania did it, now every pay-per-view is going to be 2 nights long? And I'm like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. No. That's overexposure. Please don't do that. And I don't know. I mean, the only one I would be willing to entertain going to 2 nights on a permanent basis would be the Royal Rumble. If you insist on doing 2 Royal Rumbles, then you can do that. I'm like, okay, fine. That's a fair compromise. But please don't make every pay-per-view 2 nights, please. It's too much. It's just too much, for the love of God. No mas. But, so that's enough talk about WWE. Let me pull up, I did see Double or Nothing. Because, call it a case of the curiosity killing the cat, but I did want to check out Double or Nothing, and I marked out for the MJF stuff obviously, but I do want to say like there was a lot of good stuff on the show. I'll even go as far to say like from a technical standpoint, there was no individual match on the show that was bad. It's just that the show was too damn long. It was, oh my god, that thing was 5 hours long, and I'm just like, oh, why? And I'm looking, let me pull up the card, the match times. The shortest match on a 10-match show, 12 if you count the pre-show, which would bump it up to I think a 6-hour show, or 7-hour, or however long that was. The longest match on the main card was 12 minutes and 20 seconds. The 2 pre-show matches were both over 10 minutes. And you had, let's see, 1, 2... 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches that went over 15 minutes. 2, 3 that were over 20. I mean, this is just, guys, it's exhausting. It's too exhausting to expect people to be that excited all night long when you try great match after great match after great match. And, I said last year when they did All In the stadium show, that show was paced near to perfection, where not all the matches went long. They kept everything fun and kind of brisk. And even though the show was like in that 4-hour time frame, it didn't feel it because the matches didn't drag on forever. But when every match is just going on and on and on and on, and you've got hardcore matches, and the show had 3 hardcore matches, and just everything just starts to look the same, and you kind of just zone out. And it's like, look, if your show is going to be this long, at least have an intermission. For the love of God, at least have an intermission to kind of give people a break. Because, everything's a title match or a gimmick match or some kind of grudge match or something. So there's no popcorn match. There's no, piss break match. You need a piss break match. I'm sorry. They're a necessary part of the show to give people... You need a 7th inning stretch. For God's sake. It's... I can't get over the pacing for the show, and I'm going to reference a Muppet movie here of all things, and not the best Muppet movie by any means, but Muppets Most Wanted. Part of the storyline for that movie was that Kermit gets replaced by an evil criminal, identical clone of him or whatever. It's like, okay, fine. And when he takes over the Muppet Show, he's like, do what you want, I don't care. And everybody takes their solos on too long or sings too long and takes their acts too long. And it makes the shows unbearably boring for everybody that's watching it. And that's one of the jokes that they made. It's like, guys, I can't believe I'm saying this, but take a page out of Muppets Most Wanted and take the hint that it's like, guys, your show is too long. And let me pull up the card again here. Okay, Will Ospreay, Roderick Strong went 17:40 to open up the show. You could cut 5 minutes off of that and you'd be fine. Bang Bang Scissor Gang versus Death Triangle, that could be 8. It didn't need to be 12 minutes. Toni Storm versus Serena Deeb, you could have cut 5 minutes off of that, would have been fine. Orange Cassidy and Trent Beretta shouldn't have even happened because Orange already beat him on TV, and the things that they did to put heat on Trent, like pile drive Orange Cassidy on the steel steps and do the slingshot thing underneath the ring, which could have been an injury angle, but Orange was back the next week, so it meant absolutely nothing. So to me, this match, it was resolved. The match shouldn't have even happened because Orange already beat him. So, and the things they did to get heat on Trent didn't even do anything anyway. I know that they kept the story going on Dynamite this week, but whatever. You didn't need to have this match on the card, in my opinion. So you could have cut that out completely. The FTW match, which I guess the FTW title is just AEW's version of the hardcore title now, which would be fine if they didn't have 47 other belts, but hey, fine, whatever. 12 minutes, 40 seconds, you could have cut that down to 8, would have been fine. Moxley and Takeshita was 17:20, you could have cut that down to 10. Or just not at all. Why is the IWGP title, a factor on AEW programming? Before Forbidden Door, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Forbidden Door, but one of the reasons that show doesn't really mean anything, because it's like, oh, it's AEW versus New Japan. It's like, yeah, but you do that all year long anyway, so who cares? There's no novelty to it. There's no attraction. It's the same thing you do all the time anyway. You had the barbed wire steel cage match, Adam Copeland versus Malachi Black. A really good, violent, hardcore match. Went 20 minutes. And that's probably justified given the gimmick and what they wanted to do. I popped for Gangrel. That was neat. Edge doing that dive off the top was kind of ridiculous. Well, I mean, I see those type of spots all the time, and I saw some posts on Twitter that said, like, you would never do that in WWE. And I'm like, WWE popularized those spots. What are you talking about? Mick Foley, Jeff Hardy, Kurt Angle doing moonsaults off the cage. That's where he learned how to do that in WWE. So, Edge has a couple crazies doing spears off of ladders. In TLC matches. I mean, they just did a friggin' massive TLC, or well, not TLC, but a Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania. So they do those type of spots. They popularized those spots and made people feel like they were mandatory. So it's not like the spot was stupid. It was more like, I don't know what happened where Edge looked like he hesitated in midair and came down on his feet rather than landing like a belly flop, which would have been the more ideal way to land. So I don't know exactly what happened there, but when I heard he got hurt, I'm like, yep, that was expected, and now they have to, do another multi-person ladder match to determine the new champion at Forbidden Door. Hooray! Hooray for that. But yeah, that match was probably fine as far as keeping the length goes. But then you got Mercedes Moné versus Willow Nightingale. Mercedes' debut in the company came off for the most part really well, although my personal advice to Mercedes is to no longer do the lucha stuff with the arm ringers. She can't really do that well. Everything else looked good. It's just that stuff. You should probably take that out of your repertoire. Just my opinion. But again, this one, it was a really good match, but you could probably have shaved a few minutes off of this one and lost absolutely nothing. Swerve Strickland versus Christian Cage went like 25 minutes, and again, it's like this is a title match where wasn't a bad match at all, and that's the thing. Like, individually, these matches are not bad. It's just that I'm thinking about the pacing of the show. It's like, this is a title match where we absolutely know that Christian's not winning the belt. There's no chance of Swerve Strickland winning that belt or dropping that belt. So you could shave that down to 15. It probably would have been fine. And then you had Anarchy in the Asylum, which went like 30 minutes, which was, again, wild, crazy fun. The flamethrower spot was fun, very creative, using a bus and hanging Darby. Darby Allin is completely insane. It's like, look, it was a crazy fun match. It's just a very long match tacked on to an end of a very long show, and it's hard to keep that level of energy up. The crowd, for the most part, did really well. It's like, they're better than me, because I had to watch the show over 2 days, because it was just too long for me. But, yeah, shorten your shows and learn how to pace things better. And it's okay to have a popcorn match once in a while. And it's okay to, not every match needs to be over 10 minutes. Not every match. And I'm wondering if a lot of the guys today even know how to work 5 to 7 minute matches. Nitro, at its best, Nitro was, the longest match might have been 7 minutes, 8 minutes maybe. When Nitro was at its creative peak and everybody was watching it, it was the best thing on TV, that was the case. And I don't know. I don't know, why there's this obsession with having long matches all the time on every show, and it creates situations like this where the pay-per-view, overall enjoyable, but just way too long. If you pace things out better, shorten a few things here and there, drop the one match that doesn't need to be there at all, and you'd get a very good, well-paced show that I'd be willing to give a 2 thumbs up A grade to, but now it's just kind of it was pretty good, but man, it was exhausting, and that was kind of my impression of Double or Nothing. So, it is what it is. But AEW, if they haven't learned that lesson by now, I don't know what's going to cause them to learn that lesson, because good God almighty, what do I have to do to get the point across? It's like, your shows are too long, your matches are too long. Tighten it up, learn pacing. And, I think about it, entertainment today, the way that media is just being consumed, movies are too long, TV shows are too long, and wrestling shows are too long, and it's like, dude, I was reading the other day that a third of Disney Plus's viewership is made up of Bluey, a show for babies made up of 7-minute cartoons. It's like, yeah, it's because it's fun for the whole family. The show's legitimately good. I've watched a couple episodes with my family, and they're short and digestible and easy. And, one of my favorite shows on television right now is Smiling Friends. 11 minutes. That's all you need. I don't need hour-and-a-half long pilot episodes. I don't need a season finale that goes 2 hours. It's fine to just pace it properly. Give me something in short chunks, and that's usually better. And I don't know, wrestling seems hesitant to it. Like I said, a lot of these things, like WWE has matches go too long too. I mean, this isn't something new. That's exclusive to AEW. It's a problem across the board, and one that I wish they would fix. But what are you gonna do? Who knows? One last thing. We've got Forbidden Door coming up. That's AEW's next pay-per-view. Main event is set. Will Ospreay versus Swerve Strickland. Should be a great match. I think it's a battle between, a guy who got over legitimately with the audience versus a guy who legitimately feels like the biggest star in the company. That's Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay, respectively. So doing that match, big babyface versus babyface showdown, I think it could be killer. I would be very surprised if Will Ospreay didn't walk out with the belt, because I feel like he's just on such a roll right now that he should be winning and keeping his streak going and be protected as being one of the top guys in the company. But we will see. That is definitely an exciting match to have, and hopefully the rest of the card fills out and creates an interesting card as well. Looks like it's going to be Mercedes Moné versus God, what was her name? Stephanie Vaquer, which thank you, AEW, for having a video package about her so I knew who she was, and you didn't just randomly throw her out there in front of the audience expecting us all to know who she was. So at least we got that. But, it'll be interesting, I guess, to see how it all goes, how it all plays out. And WWE, I guess with the two tournaments done, they're on the road to SummerSlam, and we'll see how all of that goes. So, I will say I haven't commented on this, and I'll say it here. WWE, I am not a fan of the new Bloodline. It kind of feels like to me, and I don't want to put down the Guerrillas of Destiny because I do like them as a tag team. And I don't want to put down Solo because I think he's a nice enforcer type for the group. But without Roman and without Rock, the group is missing a lot of mystique and appeal. And this kind of feels like when Stevie Ray took over NWO Hollywood and they were the B team. That's kind of what this feels like. And unfortunately, the A team is not around to contrast and compare. But it is what it is. So hopefully WWE creates something exciting moving into SummerSlam. And not that they don't have good stuff going, like the IC title stuff, like Rhea versus Liv down the road when Rhea comes back. But now that the draft is done, now that the tournaments are done, hopefully we can get back to something a little bit more exciting than what they've been doing. But here's hoping for that. So that is all I have for you now. Thank you again, everybody, for watching. I'm once again very sorry about the delays, but life is what it is, so what can you do? But I do want to do another Q&A in the future, so if you want to submit your questions to the email address down in the description, you can go ahead and do that. And I don't know when the next Q&A is going to be, but I will encourage you all to send your questions now, and I will get ready for that in the near future. But that is all I have for you now. Thank you once again, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you all later.